I think Matrix Resurrections might take my award for most confusing film of 2021, not just because the plot has so many loopholes and head-scratching moments, but the grand question of why this film was created in the first place. It should not have been. Long-running fans of the original trilogy like myself, as well as newcomers, are going to be confused and let down. Let's get it. Not the movie on Blu-ray, that's for sure, but let's get the review. I just got done watching it twice back to back. That wasn't because I was salivating down my sternum at all the bullet time action scenes or the awesome visuals or the kick-ass soundtrack, which all of those things are present. However, the story is so savagely confusing, and the direction that they decided to take the franchise left me more lost in the grand question of why this movie was even made in the first place. Now, I've got some notes here that I want to go over, so if you see me staring at my phone, I'm not texting on the job, just got my key points here. Now, first of all, I do want to caveat this review as I am going to be battering and bashing the film slightly by saying that I am a huge fan of the original trilogy. I grew up on it, and I also am a big Keanu Reeves fan, not only as an actor, but as a person. Every piece of evidence that we've seen shows that he's just a good dude overall and does a lot for the community. He's just a cool guy. We have a lot of mutual hobbies and whatnot. Having said that, in a live stream about 2.5 months ago, we watched the trailer and I proclaimed, I don't think this movie should be made. Yes, the action scenes look good, and I mentioned that during the trailer because of course there's bullet time, slow motion, explosions, motorcycles tearing up through city traffic and whatnot, helicopters shooting missiles. At the end of the day, that did not redeem this film in the slightest. So where can you watch this movie? As of now, it is playing in theaters, and it is also streaming on HBO Max until January 21st. Now, the very beginning of the movie starts just like all the old school Matrix movies, the same theme music, the same green Matrix code trickling down the screen. So immediately I had a bit of a nostalgia chub, but that quickly faded, and about 14 minutes into the film, I was flaccid and I remained limp for the rest of the movie, which is a 2 hour and 28 minute long movie. Generally, the sweet spot for movies is about 1.5 to an hour and 45 minutes. That's been statistically proven. However, I can easily sit through a long film as long as it is entertaining, the story or plot makes sense as it unfolds, and the second and third act aren't trash. Now, this review is going to be spoiler free. Obviously, I'm going to tickle and dance around the plot a little bit, but I'm not going to give anything away whatsoever. So all of the new characters that have replaced previously existing characters, for example, Morpheus and the agents, gave not only a less than stellar performance, but they just didn't have that same flair or punch as the originals. I'm going to play a couple of scenes here and you're going to be like, whoa, what the hell's going on?
Last.
The fuck?
Morpheus Uno, reveal at the window, lightning, thunder, and theater. At last.
At last. Welcome, Neo. As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus.
Mr. Anderson!
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
Now, this also extends to the returning characters, i.e. Neo and Trinity, as they both start out as oblivious civilians. Neo is a game designer, aka a coder, working on the next Call of Duty at some studio called Deus Machina, and Trinity is married with 2 kids and some chode of a husband. And it's never explained how they got there to being oblivious civilians with normal day jobs and families. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. It just sucks to see 2 badass characters be so weaselly and punk-assish and not understand how they got there. And then it doesn't really fully explain how they get back to being their badass selves again. I'm going to play a little snippet here of both Trinity and Neo as a couple of normies. Yeah, pop Molly with me.
No.
I have to take this. Hi, this is Tiff. Oh God, no. I'll be right there.
Oh, golly.
My youngest stuck a Lego up his nose.
Hard to watch, right? It's like when you look up to a masculine father figure or something like that, and then they get older and they're frail and they're crapping their pants. It just sucks to see them like that. Not how you want to remember them. Now, I will say the performance of the returning characters, Trinity, Neo, as well as Jada Pinkett Smith, she's looking haggard, like she's been through a couple of entanglements, if you know what I mean.
And then what did you do, Jada?
Well, you know, I think from there, you know, as time went on, I got into a different kind of entanglement. with August.
Yes, we know entanglement is vague as hell.
But the story is just all over the place and it is incredibly hard to follow. And there are so many gaps and holes that are unexplained, untied up from previous movies, and new questions that get introduced and never answered by the end of the 2-hour and 25-minute film. So Neo is actually a game designer. He's coding. He's working on the new Call of Duty for some studio called why do I have a hard time with that word? Deus Machina? It's weird. You would think he'd be working for CD Projekt Red considering he's in one of their games. But in all seriousness, he designed a trilogy of games, sure enough, called The Matrix, based on him and Trinity. It also shows him going through some Matrix code at his programming desk at this company, and doesn't explain how he still has access to Matrix code or what he's looking at there. That's 14 minutes into the movie, and it just progressively gets more and more confusing. Neil Patrick Harris, by the way, is not cast well for his role. I think he does a good job acting, but he just doesn't fit the part. It just seemed awkward that he was even in this movie. Another huge confusing factor for me was the fact that they made Trinity seem almost as powerful as Neo. Like basically they were on the same level and whatnot. He's the one, but they made it seem like he's part of the two now. Like it's just a duo. It made it seem not so much like Matrix revolves around Neo being the one, but more so he's a duo. And without his lady counterpart, his female companion, he ain't shit, which has never been the case. And Trinity's a badass. She's super powerful, but she's not the one. She's not the chosen one like Neo. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I understand maybe that's because of equality, or they wanted to make it seem like a woman can be just as powerful as a man, which is cool. That's great if we're appeal to those social outlooks and whatnot, but I don't think the application worked well here in The Matrix. And that would be fine if that had been hinted around that Trinity was also as powerful as Neo through any of the trilogy, or the Animatrix, which is the animated series, or any of the backlore or comics, or any of the fan fiction behind The Matrix, but it never was. And then all of a sudden Trinity's god tier. Also, there were a couple of moments where I was specifically trying to critique the acting and whatnot, and it did seem like Keanu Reeves almost didn't want to be on set. Now, I could just be reading too deep into this, but it did seem like he wasn't enjoying himself as much as the original Matrix trilogy, and also things like John Wick, or shoot, even Bill and Ted, right? Like you could tell he was feeling the part, and it just didn't seem like he wanted to make this film, which I don't blame him because it shouldn't have been made. Now, I will say the action scenes are good. I mean, no surprise there. It's a Matrix movie. Obviously, you're going to have awesome martial arts fights and some slow motion bullet dodging and whatnot. It's a Matrix film, and you're going to get that satisfaction here. However, I will say any gun buffs out there that really critique the gunplay in videos that most likely like things like John Wick will notice two things immediately. There is zero recoil on any of the firearms, and they definitely have the infinite ammo perk on as well, because popping a fresh mag in there was not a thing. But I will say the audio design, i.e. the sound effects and whatnot, were fantastic. Guns sounded bassy and punchy. I listened to it out of a sound bar and then out of surround sound, and it sounded good. Everything's the weapons didn't sound hollow or tinny or muddy or muddled. Everything sounded good. Explosions, gunshots, also that digital code sound effect you get when Matrix code is running down the screen. The audio design sounded good. Also, the soundtrack was perfect. It literally faded in at just the right moments to add to the intensity of the scene, and it sounded good and very reminiscent of the original Matrix trilogy. At the end of the day, my conclusion here is that this film should not have been made. In my opinion, this was simply a cash grab to try and get the younger viewers out there, the younger new audience that might not have seen the original trilogy, back into the Matrix series. So not only will they watch Resurrections, but then they'll hop over to streaming platforms and also buy the Blu-rays of the original trilogy. The thing is, the Matrix trilogy was always going to be the Matrix, just like Star Wars is Star Wars. It's a timeless cult classic. They didn't need to make some new reboot, and it seemed like even Keanu Reeves didn't really want to be part of it. I got that impression several times staring into the man's eyes as he acted, you know, with a camera at a 45-degree angle looking at his face. I could just tell he had that glaze over his eyes, like he didn't want to be there. And I think the biggest Achilles heel of this film is the fact that the story simply did not make sense. I had to watch it twice back to back, and there were so many little nuances that you're going to pick up on where you're going to be like, what? What's going on here? And it would especially be confusing for a new viewer that this is their first Matrix experience. They've never watched it. They've never read any of the books or comics. They've never watched the movies. But because the action is solid and very reminiscent of the original Matrix trilogy, the soundtrack's great, the audio design's good, and the performances from Neo, Trinity, and Jada Pinkett are inherently good, even though, like I said, there were a couple moments where Keanu Reeves just looked like he wasn't excited to be on set. Because of these factors, I am going to give this a 4 out of 10 on the Stiffy meter. Now, that is incredibly low. This is a bad movie. And it's not just me saying that. This is, of course, just my personal opinion, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for a minute here, and we'll see what the critics are saying, as well as just fans of the series like myself. All right, sharing my screen over here, we're going to look at a couple of reviews. IMDb gives it a 6 out of 10, Rotten Tomatoes a 66%, and 64% on the Metacritic. Whenever I do a movie or game review, i.e. plug it into the Stiffy meter, I don't look at other reviews, I don't read articles or watch other video reviews until I've done mine, because I don't want it to skew or sway my opinion. I want it to be my sole, unbiased opinion, and then I'll look through it later, and if need be, I'll do with an update video, a tack on, a plug-in, supplement that original video by saying, you know what, after watching a couple of reviews, I actually forgot to mention this point, but they make a valid point or whatever. This is just my opinion. I think that this movie should not have been made, and I do think it's a huge cash grab to get a new audience involved in the Matrix trilogy. Didn't really need to happen. And I'm kind of disappointed because I am a fan of the Matrix trilogy. I grew up on it. I'm that old. These grays are functional. They're not just for show. Drop your opinion of Matrix Resurrections down there in the comment section below. We'll get a little forum going on, a conversation. If you enjoyed this movie review, liking it will help to get seen by more gamers and movie buffs, apparently. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, as well as tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, and honest gaming peripheral reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics, chairs, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.